So you've started to embark on your journey and you've decided that you're ready to meet your supernatural aid, your mentor, your guide. Well, I'll tell you how I met mine. This mentor, he completely changed my life. And I'm forever grateful for my mentor in a way that I can't even explain. And I want that for everybody who really has put in the work and wants to go somewhere special with their life. Now, you could call this happenstance. There was definitely a lot of things that needed to come into place for me to meet my mentor. But it also wasn't really something that happened the day that I met my mentor. It was something that started a long time before then. It started with the conviction that we talked about the other day, with a burning desire to achieve a very specific goal. So if you aren't there yet, then you might want to start with that. And if you haven't already, go check out that video. That's called If You See This, It's Your Time to Go All In. And then you want to make sure that you are skilled and able to provide some level of value to this mentor. If you haven't developed a skill, well, that's going to be the most important thing to do after you commit. And you don't have to be amazing at it. This just needs to be something specific that you're working on. And then after that, you're going to be ready to find your mentor. So here's how it happened for me. I was very well prepared to meet my mentor. I spent about 2 years researching something very specific and even building a bit on what I thought was going to be the most important technology of my lifetime. So I put in that work and I built up my vocabulary so that by the time I spoke with my guide, my mentor, we spoke the same language. And that is really important. Then after that, I was out and about, okay? I was relentless about meeting people in my space. And it was undeniable, right? To the point to where if I'm showing up to certain events and someone didn't know who I was, they were like, who is this guy? And why have I not met him yet, right? Why does everybody else know who this guy is and I don't? And it wasn't just that I showed up. It was also that I tried to find a way to stand out. Now, this wasn't something that I started practicing until a little bit later, but when someone asks me how my day is going, typical common greeting, I don't give the typical common answers. I'll say, today is the best day of my life. And for certain kinds of people, a lot of the types of people that you might want to be around are going to ask the simple question of, oh, really? Why is that? And then what do? I begin as if I'm going to embark on a story. And I say, so I woke up this morning, right? And then I wait for them to catch on and realize that was it. Now, I tell you that because doing something like that immediately puts you in a completely different category. And you can steal that one if you want, at some point, just give me some credit. But no, seriously, it's pattern interrupt. You hear this when you hear men talking about dating advice. You have to find a way to stand out in the initial beginnings of your meeting with someone. At least when you do that, it's going to put you in a whole different league, in a whole different category. People will put you in a different place in their brain. And that alone can be the thing that gets you to where you need to be to meet your mentor. So stand out. Now, anyways, one day I met who I will call the connector, the man who knew my mentor already. And one day he invited me out, and the connector, he's an eccentric character, right? So, I didn't know this at the time in particular, but he's a multi-decamillionaire, right? And he would send me these little cryptic texts. So one day he sent me one of these and he was like, name of the restaurant, 6 p.m. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm there. I show up on time and I call him to see where he is. And he tells me that he's 40 minutes away, right? I'm like, 40 minutes away, bro. I got here on time. And so at this point, I'm honestly a little bit upset, right? I'm on the phone with my dad and I'm nearly cussing this guy out, but I sit there and I wait. And he gets there and I meet him inside and he's by the bar sitting next to this older man, and he introduces me to him. He's like, "Hey, David, meet Keith." Okay, cool. Now, I sit down and I'm chatting with this older guy, and it turns out he's in finance and he owns his own broker-dealer. He's one of the most prominent bankers in the city. But the most impressive thing was that he never said anything about any of that, really. But instead, as I'm talking to him, people kept coming up to him left and right. They're like, "Hey, David, oh man, you're the man," right? Multiple people did this, and they would come up and they would say to me, you know, like, "Yo, this guy is the man. Like, you're talking to the guy right now." I was like, okay, cool. So anyways, we chat for like an hour and a half, and he's like, "Yeah, you should come by my office." He hands me his card, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm there. Now, the only reason he really took the time to invite me to his office was because he knew that I was on a mission, right? When we were talking, I was very intentional about the things that I was saying. I had a level of conviction in my voice about the things that I was trying to explain to him that I thought was the most important thing, that it was undeniable that I was going to be valuable to him and that I knew what I was talking about. So anyways, I showed up at the office, I think it was like the next day even. And I showed up at that office almost every single day for the next 2 years. Okay, so it wasn't because he asked me to come, right? He never really asked me to come. I just would show up. Eventually I got a key. Eventually I got a little bit too comfortable. I brought my guitar in there and he was like, "Look, dude, you can't be bringing your guitar in here, bro." But anyways, me meeting my mentor ended up being the launch pad for me to meet some extremely successful people, and honestly some very cool people. Professional athletes, people from the world's most important think tanks, investors that you would know if I called them out. One day I picked up the phone and I realized I was speaking to Les Brown. And just imagine how magical of a moment that would be. But the point of all of this is that for me to meet my mentor, there had to be a few conditions in place. One of them is that I had to be fully committed to the thing that I thought was going to be the most important thing, or that I thought mattered at the very minimum. The second thing is I needed to go out into the world. Okay, there are so many meetups. Go to meetup.com and just scroll through and go to all of them. Now, in the city that I was in, there was a meetup almost every day. And I just went out and I just went to them and I met people and I shook hands. I went to the industry conferences and stuff. I did it all. I went everywhere, and to the point that I had met just about anyone. And then after that, stand out. You know, for me, I was one of the youngest people in the room. Sometimes it's that simple. But also be conscious of how can you do little things to stand out, but also the most important thing to stand out is to be super curious. Ask people about themselves in a way that makes them say, "Wait a minute, no one's ever asked me that question before." And that right there puts you in a real different league, other than that performative stuff that I was talking about a little bit ago. And finally, be willing to show up. I didn't say this, but my mentor never offered to pay me anything, and I didn't ask. He did eventually, but I didn't ask. I just pulled up and I provided value to him without any questions asked. And once again, I learned so much from him, and he connected me to so many people that would change my life forever. And now when I get the chance, I connect other people to that mentor as well. So anyways, that's it. I'm not saying this is a formula. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm not saying that I got everything right. But hopefully it was helpful to you. And if it was, let me know in the comments down below. And if it was, let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, until next time, peace.